it was a great step down rather than just stepping off the cliff. And we hear that story from many men.
Right.
They dreamed about retirement for 30 years or 40 years, and then they step off the cliff and there's nothing down there. Nothing down there. Like they've done no preparation. They're just lost because they're no longer an engineer, no longer a pipe fitter. They're no longer a teacher. They're none of those things. Well, who are we?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the RESGEN Giving Life podcast, where we have helpful and meaningful conversations about being a man whose life in Christ gives life to others. My name is Tom Henderson. I'm a follower of Jesus, a husband to Laura, a dad to Isaiah and Chase, and the founder of RESGEN. And I am so excited that you're joining me today for what is going to be a fantastic episode. Before we get into it, though, I do want to remind you about RESGEN's two marquee events that are right around the corner: Date Night Comedy in January and the RESGEN Men's Summit in February. First, let's talk about what many couples call their favorite date night of the year: Date Night Comedy. This year, Date Night Comedy is moving to the downtown Sioux Falls building known as the Washington Pavilion on January 16th. That's a Friday night, and we cannot wait to have hundreds of couples gather for that night of laughter, encouragement, and learning. And this year, it is going to be an amazing night as we've got my good friend and date night favorite, Ted Cunningham, coming back, along with illusionist, comedian, and America's Got Talent winner, Dustin Tavella. So you're going to want to make sure that you do not miss your opportunity to join other couples and be a part of that night. All right, now for the Men's Summit, okay? RESGEN Men's Summit 2026, which, by the way, is our 10th anniversary of the summit, is going to be absolutely crazy as we're taking it to the Denny Sanford Premier Center on Saturday, February 21 from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. This year's theme is all about being men of vision, and I'm so excited that John C. Maxwell is going to be here, Tim Tebow is going to be here, my good buddy Sammy Adamy is going to be here, comedian Johnny W., it's going to be an unbelievable day, and I don't want you to miss it. So here's what I'm asking men to do. Number one, I'm asking you to get your tickets, okay? I'm asking you not to procrastinate the way we often do, okay? And then I'm also asking you to think about who can you bring with you? What 2, 5, 10 guys can you bring with us so that we can see it maxed out at 5,000 plus men? Let's all join together and make that happen. So tickets for both events, Date Night Comedy and the Men's Summit, are available at resgen.org. So when you're all wrapped up listening to this episode of the podcast, I encourage you to head to the website and get your tickets. All right, well, let's get into today's show. Today, I'm being joined by a newer friend of mine whom I have really enjoyed getting to know over the last several years. Randell Beck is a husband, he's a father, a grandfather, and a retired journalist who has led numerous efforts to close the opportunity gap for the disadvantaged children in Sioux Falls. As a longtime mentor, Randell is the co-founder of the Sioux Falls Hope Coalition, South Dakota News Watch, and Sioux Falls Neighborhood Soccer. Professionally, as an editor and a publisher of the Argus Leader Media, Randell received numerous honors throughout his career, including serving 3 terms on the Pulitzer Prize Board, and he was also inducted into the South Dakota Hall of Fame in 2022. Today, Randell and I are going to discuss so much good stuff, including being men who keep our focus on being faithful rather than on becoming famous, the role that forgiveness has played in his life, and how his relationship with his father influenced his parenting. We also talk about how Randell went from dropping out of college to being a member of the Pulitzer Board 3 times, and where his heart for serving kids and in need came from, and what retirement has taught him about himself and where his true identity is found. Friends, I am so stoked for this conversation, so let's get into it. Randell Beck, my friend, welcome to the Giving Life podcast.
Oh, thank you, Tom. What an honor to be here.
This is so fun. And I just want to first, before we even get into this, you and I have been connected now for a couple years. Mm-hmm. And what I love about how we got connected is that the room that we are in together every Wednesday at noon is such a diverse group of guys, and a room that I'm so grateful to have been in now for multiple years, because everybody that's a part of that room and a part of our discussions, that we all come from different walks of life. We're all different ages. We're all different professions, but yet there's just this common bond we have in Christ and a desire to keep growing as individuals.
Totally.
Isn't that true?
Absolutely true. And I would say that I was nervous when I first got into it. Like, what am I getting into?
Yeah.
How much am I going to really, truly love this? But 2.5 years in, Tom, it has just become a highlight of my week. And I find these men and the relationships that I have with them, you included, have just become richer and deeper by the week. And so I can't wait for next Wednesday and what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, and it's and for those of you that aren't a part of something like this is actually really a first for me as well in the style of the gathering that it is. And really, it's okay. We go through different books all the time, so it's kind of like a book club, all right. And Chuck Hyatt, who mutual friend, he's been on an episode of the podcast as well. He's the leader of it. He's put us all together, and we just have conversations. Sometimes they the chapter sometimes doesn't even get spoken about.
Completely right.
It's kind of a springboard to conversations. But I love how you said that you didn't really know what you were getting into.
Yeah.
Because I think that sometimes when something is new or we haven't experienced before, it can cause us to maybe shrink back and not say yes to something. Mm-hmm. But I think by each of us saying yes to that, we've all grown. And so even just as we get going in our conversation, I want to know a little bit about your faith journey and when you said yes to the Lord, to where you said, man, I really do want Jesus to be my Savior. I want him to be the leader of my life, to guide me in all aspects of my life. Tell me that story.
Yep. Well, I accepted Christ as a 10-year-old. Raised in a Christian family, and was exposed early on to the gospel. And so I was fortunate to really to come face to face with my sin, wrestled with what does it mean to be a sinner? What does it mean to be God's child? And what do I have to do to close that gap with the Lord? And so I wrestled with those questions. And I vividly remember that Sunday that I went up and accepted Christ. And it seems like, Tom, I started down that road, but then this thing called teenager happened to me. And maybe like a lot of men, maybe in particular, a lot of forces came into my life, including a bad crowd that I got sucked into in high school that drew me away from that life, and very rapidly. And so I'm sorry to say that for the next almost 10 years, I did all that I could to run away from God, to not be the young person and the man that he wanted me to be. And I tried drugs, I tried alcohol, I tried living without Jesus, and finally in my mid-20s, 24, 25, came to the realization that I did need this Jesus, and that my life was empty without it. But I spent nearly 10 years running away and estranged from my family, and really it was not a good life. And so that was my first time stepping back into the Lord. But like a lot of men, I think, because I've heard this story again and again, it wasn't the last. So I've seen in my life, and maybe you have too in yours, key points along the way when I've plateaued, and maybe I'm falling back a bit, and God has placed someone in my life who has been a key part of drawing me back into the life Jesus wanted. And I'll give you a quick example or story about that.
Yeah.
In my late 30s, early 40s, we moved, job-related, moved to California. We're trying out churches. And, I was pretty career obsessed. Wasn't really living the life, I think, of discipleship that he expected from me. And the second Sunday we visited church, it was an independent Bible church in Southern California. This happened. After the service, we didn't know a soul. A man came from somewhere in that sanctuary of about 300 or 400 people. He introduced himself. My name is Gary. And he said, all worship long, the God has been planting on my heart. I need to come over and introduce myself to you. And I know you need me in your life. That you are struggling.
Yeah.
And you are a man who needs a friend, a Christian friend. And I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but here I am. His name was Gary Stanley.
Yeah.
And he worked He worked for what we called Campus Crusade then.
Okay.
Now with Crew.
Yeah.
And he became my best friend. He became a discipler to me. And he really brought me back. He, in Christ, into the life that I was supposed to be leading as a disciple, as a follower, as a believer.
Wow.
So it's a powerful story, and Gary's still a friend to this day.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Well, what a way to honor him even in this, because I'm sure he'll listen and be able to hear the honor that you gave him there. So was there anything within you at that moment, Randall, where you're like, okay, dude, that's a little upfront for me? Like,
I was completely taken aback, as you would be, as most of us would be.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't sure that I believed him.
Yeah.
That like, is this guy? Is he gaming me?
Yeah.
Right? Is he really gaming me?
Yeah.
And what he did was he drew me into a men's group. I'd never been a part of a men's group up to that point in my life. First time, and I discovered not just with Gary, but these 5 or 6 other men, all kind of like me, wandering, maybe even wandering away from the path of a believer, and together with Gary at the head. We were all sort of drawn jointly back into that life that Jesus imagines for all of us.
And it's so interesting, Randall, because I think that is a story that resonates with so many of us, because especially in that age that you just spoke about, that upper 30s into the early 40s, where we're so driven at that point of our lives and our career to really establish that career, and the wrestling match that happens within us of where's our identity going to be found? Is it going to be found in pursuing the accolades, the titles, all those things that are shiny and that the world says that are important, right? And listen, our work is important. There's no question about that. I mean, and we're told that in everything that we do, we're to work as if we're working for the Lord and not for man. So that calls us to excellence in our work. But it is super difficult sometimes to keep the right perspective about our work and our faith. And how do we intersect our faith with our everyday life?
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing, at least I'm maybe inferring maybe a little bit more, so correct me if I'm wrong, is it sounded like that Gary and then connecting yourself with these other men helped you, weave your faith into the fabric of your just everyday life. Is that safe to say?
That's well said. I would say that Gary became a catalyst for a whole series of related changes in my life. One was this idea that I was defined by my career, that this profession, in my case, journalism, defined my identity, not just personally, but in the community with my wife, with my family. That somehow it was important to them that I was this hotshot journalist. And so I not only was a slave to the job, time-wise, but I think even more so emotionally and psychologically. Really chained to the job. That's where I found my identity. In the process, my effectiveness as a husband, Linda would say this today, was really severely diminished. And I think in many ways during that phase of my life, the 30s, early 40s, I was absent as a father. Missed numerous opportunities to be the dad that I need to be, especially to my 2 sons. And they would say that today. We've come to terms with it, the 3 of us in our own ways. But I think that time was pivotal. And they would say, I think all of them would say, thankfully, man, Dad, man, Randy, you changed at that point. And boy, am I glad that you did.
So then as you looked at, so you had this time where you were all about work. And, and establishing your role as I don't know if you said a rock star journalist or
you said that, not me. But I mean, it's like the more successful I was in that profession, then of course the more successful I was in life. It made sense to me.
Yeah, right. So then after this heart change, that's really, because that's what it's about. It's about changing our hearts and not just our minds, right? But our hearts and so forth. So how did your newly focused heart and faith influence the way you worked from that point on? Because it's one thing to say like, okay, hey, that changed everything. But then it's another thing to say how it really changed it.
Yeah, great point. That's a great point. Well, for one practical change is that the hours that I worked went down dramatically. I finally figured out, why did I not know this, that the number of hours that I devoted to work weren't necessarily reflective of my effectiveness. I discovered this fact that is hidden to many of us, men especially. I think that the longer we're at the office, the better we are as leaders. And of course, the opposite is true. I began to understand that when I delegated to others, when I was gone, my other leaders got a chance to really rise up and do their very best, and that's how they found value, not when I was there looking over their shoulder. So I just became a more effective leader. I became a bigger part of my home, right? A better husband who was present in every way with the woman who loves me, and with my kids who were mostly in their teenage years, who desperately needed an involved dad. And the boys in a different way than the girls, but they all needed me engaged with their lives, and I was fortunate that there was enough time for me to re-engage with them. And so, in many ways, the job, I was on the track professionally to become, a top boss, which has always been my goal, to be an editor, to be a publisher. And so I realized again that the main, maybe the main metric there of the hours at the office didn't necessarily lead to success. And so I really moderated that part of my life.
Yeah.
And so everything slipped more into balance. And as we all learn, we keep learning this lesson. Balance is such a critical part with our discipleship, the very center of that, our relationship with Jesus, and then how it radiates out. But balance is critical.
Yeah. And I find that it gets harder and harder to truly accomplish or to reach what we would maybe call a balanced life,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because of just work is never done. It always follows you home, or it can if we allow it to. But I often think about another word that you said in that sentence that is so important, and that's centered. And what is the center of our focus?
Yep.
And how we define success. So as you look at and I would ask, take yourself back about 30 years now to that time where you began to redefine what success meant.
Yep.
And would how you define success back then 30 years ago still be the way that you define success today?
Not necessarily. I think I've learned really beginning then and over the years since that success in the world's definition, as it turns out, I should have known this, is not the definition that God uses. And so when Gary taught me how to have Scripture at the center of my life, not just something to take in a Bible on Sundays to worship. So it became, the Word became central to my life. And so, of course, we learned through that career ambitions, how we define ourselves through our job, those are empty. Those are empty promises. Those are the world's empty promises. They lead us nowhere. I felt like that the values of being a Christian, especially in the profession that I chose, journalism, newspapers, the world of media, if I was honest, if I treated people with dignity and respect, and I maintained the integrity that was central to my own relationship with Jesus, all good things would come. And in fact, they did. So I learned then, at a pivotal point, as I said, not just my faith became deeper, but also I understood how success, if we pursue it, the more elusive it becomes. If we keep it in perspective and don't worry about it and don't let it define us, then it will come, but in the right mix, if that makes sense, Tom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah. That's good. So you mentioned something about, so you talked about, being in journalism and in the media, and how being someone that was honest and trustworthy is so crucial. And I don't know that everybody, like when it comes to media today, people don't know who to trust. Is that
for good reason?
Is that fair to say?
No, for totally good reason.
So
yeah.
So when you were obviously in your career, even prior to that point of where you started to define success differently and really focus on, man, I just want to be, a man of character and integrity and trustworthy. And I mean, that was always a part of who you were, even when you were working. So that's
for sure.
That's not to make it sound like it wasn't.
Yeah.
But where now it all of a sudden all came underneath the authority of Christ.
Totally right. Well said. Yeah.
So did you feel the distrust of media back then as well? Or is it just ramped up today much more so just because of the number of media outlets and how fast the news cycle changes?
Well, I'd say yes and yes to that. I mean, certainly I felt then, folks then, I think for some good reasons, for some bad, had the perceptions that a lot of folks shared the perception that media had certain sort of biases. Some of those are just sort of things that we believe along the way and don't necessarily test them. We just sort of latch on to them because they help us simplify and think in easier terms about the world that we confront, which is complex, and it's always been complex. So I think if we think that all media is X, then it helps us sort of things fall into place and it fits maybe our preconceived view of the world. Does that make sense? And that's always been the case. I think there were fellow Christians, even once we moved here, we moved to Sioux Falls 25 years ago, that people had a certain idea about me, even those who never met me. They assumed because I was in the media that I was liberal.
Interesting.
Politically.
Okay.
And that I was willing to do certain things to advance that liberal view of the world among our readers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there were certain things that people assumed about me, and once they came to know me and understand me and see me for who I was, then they changed their view. But because it was so even firmly established then that journalists are liberal. And out of step with the country's values, and in fact, even are eager to sort of tear apart some of those values. That I think person by person, relationship by relationship, I think people came to understand that was not the case, and that the closer we look at people, the more complex we all are. And it's not easy to sort of fit a certain view of the world. Does that make sense? So at any rate, I think I was able to, over time, as editor, as publisher here, help our readers, help the general populace see that we are neither black nor white. We're simply trying to do the best job we could under sometimes very trying circumstances. Today is in some ways different, in some ways the same. Some of those same old views of the media still persist, unfortunately. But there's a shred of truth to keep them alive.
Yeah. Well, and true.
I mean, nothing just is made up, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the news finds us
the
today.
News finds us for sure.
In previous years, that wasn't this. There wasn't. It was just you'd get the paper, right?
Yeah.
And the algorithm didn't find you. And
right.
Feed you your own whatever your belief system
That's
is,
right.
and then create an us versus them type scenario.
I can remember a story sort of along those lines. We'd written an editorial. This is way back. Written an editorial at the Argus. It was some sort of ag policy issue. I don't even remember what stand we took. But it was fairly forceful. And the first call I got in the morning was from a farmer in Iowa, northwest Iowa. And he said, "You idiots at the Argus Leader are the most right-wing people I can ever think of. What is wrong with you? When are you going to smarten up?" Literally, before noon, I got another call from a South Dakota farmer saying, You idiots at the Argus Leader are so far to the left, you are out of step with all of us here in the Dakotas. So the point is, a lot of times it's about our own worldview and what we bring to the page. And so it's more complex. The world is so much more complex today. We find our media that matches our worldview. We can pick and choose. We don't have to read the Argus Leader, what little still remains of the Argus Leader. We don't have to read any one thing. We can choose any kind of channel that reflects back to us the voice that we support.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the way our media is. It's so splintered.
Yeah. And obviously your experience with that is in the media world, and we all have situations in our lives where we get to either choose, are we going to be extensions of God's grace in those conversations when we feel attacked, or are we going to get defensive and attack back? Right? That's right. Yeah. So to be able to just say, okay, listen, we don't even know what they're bringing into a situation, right? In any of these conversations, we don't know what's going on in their world. What's the battle that individuals are facing in their lives that other people don't know about it? Because the reality is that every single one of us is fighting a battle that no one else knows about.
That's completely right. Yeah.
So for you to be able to hear that on both sides, all within a few.
I think I was amused then. I think it was a funny story then, and what I sometimes encountered even among pretty close personal Christian friends. Deep down, and a few were willing to admit it, figured I was a Democrat. I had no knowledge of my voting record or my personal beliefs because I killed them in pretty close, in close contact. But they pretty much suspected I was a Democrat, and they couldn't quite figure out. But you're at a Baptist church. How can that? Well, that doesn't square with my view of the world.
And isn't that funny? Because we sit there, we say, well, because you remember this church, you're this. Because you remember this church, because you're in the faith, you're this, or whatever. And the reality is, if you would just be able to have honest conversation with people and say, let's get to the heart of the matter and build relationship. A lot can be solved. It's just that we make so many assumptions. Right, left, liberal, conservative, whatever. And at the end of the day, it's if we would just initiate conversation, come in with curiosity versus certainty,
curiosity,
we would be so much further ahead.
Curiosity, not judgment.
That's exactly right. For sure. Well, I want to talk about just a topic that obviously every single person, if you've lived life longer than a few minutes, you've known the need to be forgiven and to forgive others, because there's countless situations we've been hurt. There's been situations where we have hurt others, and I remember. It was about last year, and you said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to come on the next couple Wednesdays or whatever it is, because you were going to go on a road trip and you were going to go and visit another individual that you kind of just felt like there was a relationship, a little rift in the relationship, broken relationship, and you just said, I want to drive." It was a very long distance, I remember. It said, and
2 states away.
Solely for the reason to just sit with this person and say, hey, if there's anything that I did that has caused brokenness in our relationship, I just want to say sorry and receive forgiveness and offer forgiveness, whatever it is. And I thought, man, that tells me like what kind of a man you are and just your willingness to do this. And so I'm just interested and that's maybe just its own separate thing, but I don't think so. But like, what role is forgiveness? What role has that played in your life? To say like, at age 71 at the time, 70, whatever you were, to say, I'm going to go and take initiative to go do that.
Thank you for that opportunity. It's really become a privilege to talk about it because it's important to men, I think, on many levels. The episode that you talked about was just a year or so ago where I had a relationship, a lifelong relationship since I was a kid with Chris, dear friend. And for various reasons on both sides, that relationship became broken.
Mm-hmm.
And the year before, the Spirit of God, over a series of months, insistently spoke to me. you need to do something about this. You are, it doesn't matter whether it's your fault or not. You need to do something about it. You need to take the first step. And so to the point where I called up Chris one day and I said, I need to come speak with you. I need to talk to you. I need to come apologize. And he started to backpedal and, I think we can do it over the phone. I said, no, I need to do this. And so I drove two states away, spent the weekend with Chris, and I just said, I am sorry. Some of the things that I did, I don't even remember. I didn't even remember them, but I knew that I had been at least partially at fault. So I apologized, and I felt, Tom, let me tell you, a complete washing experience through that whole episode. For one thing, I felt like I was being obedient in doing that, in taking the time to go down and apologize to Chris. Number one, I felt like that process, that reconciliation, I think it was one, had restored one of the longest relationships I have in this life. And that's important to me. And when we get to be a certain age, we look back and we think about those things. It's like, what's broken and what do I need to do to fix it? And so I was able to do that, and I feel so good having gone through that process. The model for both of those, for that a step for me, I think both scriptural based, have been my relationship with my father and my relationship with a guy named Bill Janklow, who, as every South Dakotan knows, even the transplants, knows as one of the great leaders and figures of controversy in our state's history. And the first with Janklow happened first, and it really boils down to this reality: is that Bill and I knew each other very well, but as the leader of the largest news organization in the state, I had to cross swords with Bill many times. Bill had little regard for the media's role, at least in a true democracy, and his way of doing things was by fiat, by saying, "You're going to do it." And the largest leader and I had different viewpoints on that. We tried to get information; he tried to hide it. It was a years-long relationship, very, very difficult, both publicly and privately. We just butted heads again and again and again. He said things about me to others that were wrong, and in my own part, I harbored feelings of resentment and anger toward him. So it was unhealthy. Fast forward to I was in the publisher's chair, which means I was over the whole newspaper, and the phone rings one day. My secretary came in and said, Governor Janklow's on the phone. By this time, he was, not holding any office, retired. And he said, "Hey, Randell," he said, "I'm dying, and I need to talk to you now." Now, not tomorrow, now. And so he couldn't drive at that point. He had a brain tumor and was dying. And I'd heard rumors to that effect. So I drove out to his law office and picked him up. And he said, "No, I'd like for us to go to a restaurant or some coffee house. But the problem is, Beck, everybody in this town knows either you or me or both. And so we'll just attract a lot of attention. So let's just go somewhere where it can just be the two of us." And so the closest place we could think of was the parking lot at an Elmwood cemetery, or at Elmwood golf course. And so we drove there in my vehicle, and Tom, to make a really long story short, we sat together in my car for 3.5 hours. And he said, "I have said and I've done things against you, and I am deeply sorry. And he also was very clear that he needed to get right with God before he was gone. He said, so I've got I got a motive here. He said, I always had a motive, but it's important to me that I be reconciled to people that have been on my bad list for a long time. He said, it's a long list, but he said, you're at the top of it, pal. And he began to cry because his heart was broken. I think it was shattered, that he had lived, this very public life, but had an enemies list. And so he confessed that. We talked about all of the times when we crossed swords, when we hit heads, things that he perceived that I said that I didn't say. So both of us got to really confess to each other our failings in that relationship and how we regretted at that point in our lives that had happened, not only privately, but we regretted this image that had broad appeal, that I hated Bill and that Bill hated me. Well, that's just the way politicians and the media are. They hate each other. Didn't have to be that way, and that's what Bill said. And so we spent hours and hours in that car, shedding a lot of tears. And I think at that point, just really months before he died, coming to terms with all of the things that we had in common. And so he wanted to get right with God, and I was the first one
you were a part of
to
that.
bring that to. So I'm honored, as I've thought many times about it over the years, to have had that experience in my life. And those hours were among the most, today remain among the most cherished time I've spent with any human being. And so that's one. So that really
thanks for sharing that story.
You're
I mean, 'cause
welcome.
that's
I've not told many people that. I've never said it publicly. I've told a few people that on occasion here and there, but I've never really said it publicly. So,
and what you said there too is what, and this is what I appreciate about you, Randall, is that it's not like, hey, Bill owned up for all the stuff that he did, and then you let it stop, right? And
no,
but you said, but you know what? In that 3.5 hour conversation, I had to own up on my part too.
I had to.
And that's relationship. That's brokenness of relationship. And it's sometimes too. It's not sometimes. It's too bad that it often takes a diagnosis or something tragic.
Why
to
is
happen
that? Why is that?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
but
it's true.
And so I would just encourage that. I mean, if there's listeners out there, if there's people that there is a relationship that needs to be restored, number one, I think just bring that to the Lord and just say, God, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
And then trust in His timing and that He's going to give you the words to say that need to be said.
Amen to that.
And especially that motivation, right? I mean, because motivation's so key. I mean, from what I'm hearing, and again, obviously I wasn't in that vehicle, but it sounded like he just said, listen, I need to own up to my part in this.
Exactly.
And then that gave you the opportunity to own up to yours. And if that's the heart in which these conversations are had, that's the right heart to have.
Completely right. I agree with that. Not only did he say that he needed to own up to it, but that he realized he was going to meet his maker.
Yeah.
His God. I don't know what relationship he had with the Lord. I can't be the judge of that. But he clearly articulated to me that was the driver here. Yeah, he wanted to clean up things, but he understood there was something bigger than him in motion here. So I thought he framed it really well, and both of us got to talk about our faith and our journey of faith. We're all on a journey of faith.
That's right.
The other, the second, I would say, major point of reconciliation for me, Tom, was with my own dad.
Yeah.
And, we had you didn't ask this, but I assume you would like to ask it. We had a difficult relationship. As I understand it now, many men do, right? And, he was the greatest generation. He grew up poor and spent most of his life working to make sure that he was never poor.
Mm-hmm.
He was a hard worker. He was driven in so many ways for success, to achieve. And he made darn sure that his three sons, me as the oldest, followed that same path and really beat into us figuratively and literally this idea that we needed to be better today than we were yesterday, and that our achievements and what we did and how smart we were and the things that we accomplished were measuring sticks for that. And he held us accountable for those things. And so it was a demanding environment to put it the best way to grow up in. My two brothers and I have all struggled with the aftermath of that. And we all grew up with this idea that it's never enough.
Mm-hmm.
Never enough for Dad to make him happy, to make him pleased with us, to proud of us. And so my favorite story on that, just a quick sidetrack, is when I was invited to join the Pulitzer Board many years later, the first person I wanted to tell, besides my wife, was my dad. Always fishing for some sort of done.
Maybe then
well
he'd
done,
say he's
son.
proud of you.
Well done. Maybe
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Maybe this is it.
Yeah.
So listen, this happened. I called him up. I said, Dad, I got to tell you this thing that happened to me. I was invited to be a member of this 16 board that makes all these decisions, the Pulitzer Board. And there was silence on the phone. And he said, what are you going to do tomorrow? Well, Dad, I thought I'd rest on my laurels for one day.
Yeah.
Well, what's next? What's next? So that, not well done, not, man, that's awesome. What's next? What are you going to do next? So, some of us, it's a common story.
Yeah.
Not uncommon, I should say, with that. I run again, men who face that again and again. And we had to come to terms with that. And so really, as he was dying many years later, about 11, 12 years ago, got to spend really quality time with my dad, and we had a lot of long talks, and we dealt with that stuff. I don't feel like everything was said, but we went a long way toward, I think, reconciling. For me to tell him how I felt growing up, and for him to try to explain to me this imperfect creature that he was, and he recognized that toward the end of his life, and realized that he'd been a demanding, difficult father. And so we got to kind of come clean as kind of that dying again, kind of, it reorders the stage, right? And we understand the consequences. But he really wanted to make amends and to ask for forgiveness and try to make sure that I knew that he did love me through all of that.
Thank you for sharing that, Randall. And there's a lot of, similarities, as you know, in just some of our stories, right? Yours and my story.
Yes.
And, but so I'm interested in how did that really impact your view of parenting your kids?
Yeah.
How did that influence it? What was that?
Well, one of the things that I battled, this is not blaming someone else, but especially in my young adulthood, I sort of, these practices I talked about, being a slave to the job, identifying, achievement. I sort of traced back to that, to that upbringing. That's the way Dad was. It's the way he defined himself, I think. And so that seemed like a natural thing for me to inherit. And so many of the same drivers in my life, that thing in us, that little spark that drives us to do better tomorrow than we did today. What is that thing? It's not an attractive thing, and we're not proud of it. And I think, seeing that how it traced back to him, and I think that maybe was a part of my success. I did many of the things that he did in his own career. But I think there's something else in our relationship that triggered a different response because of that environment that you know, rarely just saying, I love you, son, or always focusing on the negative, what you haven't done, not what you've done. It also convicted me later as a father. And I remember Linda and I talking specifically because she shared also a history of a difficult, demanding, unyielding father. And so early on, when we began having children, we talked specifically about it. I am not going to let that shape the kind of father that I am. And so I found myself almost instinctively, Tom, reacting against the kind of father that he had been. And so we made sure, Linda and I, that our household was full of I love yous. A day never went by where we didn't tell our kids, I love you. I love you. I love you. We were not perfect parents, of course. Both of us had our flaws, but it really initiated, it led to some significant changes in that cycle. Sometimes we can look back as men and see that we're caught up in this cycle of name your flaw, right?
Yeah.
I mean, alcoholism, many addictions follow a cycle there. They don't just stop with one generation.
Right.
And I saw that tendency in me, emotional distance, not saying I love you, but rather, what have you done for me lately? And I wanted to break that for my kids, and especially my two sons. And so I think that we had a home life, just speaking about Linda and I, where our kids always knew, never doubted that we loved them unconditionally. So I do trace that to my own relationship with Dad.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is that, it makes me think of the statement of be the dad that you wish you would have had.
Absolutely right. Well said. Yeah.
The reality is that, we all come from something, right? And there's no perfect family. There's no perfect dad. There's no perfect marriage.
Yeah.
But yet the reality is that hopefully we can learn from our past and
Completely
then bring
right.
that into, a healthier relationships and a healthier viewpoint of just how we view people, how we view success and all that, because of that, and not use it as a crutch.
Yeah,
That was one of the things
Absolutely
that my dad
right.
struggled was just, it was just said, well, you don't understand because this is how I, was raised or whatever. And while I understood that, I'm like, well, I know, but you're here now. Like, this is, you can choose to build on a different foundation, now if you choose to do that.
Yeah.
So, even amongst, the mistakes that you and I, made as dads, hopefully all of our kids would be like, yeah, but you know what, you did what the best you could, and don't you love the fact, and I know that, like, even going back to your story that you began with in the kind of your upper 30s and so forth, the amount of grace that our spouses give us, the amount of grace that our kids give us, and the amount of grace that our God gives us.
Yes.
And
Amen.
And so when we can just say, man, you know what, buddy, I failed here, and will you forgive me? And then we just say, okay, now we're gonna move forward. We're gonna move forward together. So
yeah,
those are such great stories. Thank you for being willing to share those.
Well, you're welcome. And because I recognized that tendency in my own life because of the relationship that Dad and I had. At a certain point, once my two boys were men, well into their adulthood, the three of us had an opportunity, both together and then just one-on-one with each of them, to spend some time talking over those. What has our relationship really been like? And to give me a chance to not just fall on the sword on everything, but to say, I probably missed opportunities to be the best dad that I could. I want you to know, Joe. I want you to know, Cody, I'm sorry about that. Mostly, I was just kind of making it up as I went along.
Yeah.
Like most dads would say, I'm not looking to next Thursday. I'm just getting through this day and doing the best I can. And so I think we had some great times talking about that. We did a couple of retreats together, the three of us.
It's wonderful.
We shared some journaling where we took turns journaling about this, to kind of just get it out there in front of us. And those were invaluable, I think, at really restoring what I think are today rich, transparent, and not perfect relationships that I'm very proud of.
Oh, that's so good. You know,
I want to say one thing too. It's amazing to me in any group of men how this is a theme, is the relationship with dad, with their own dads, and how that can shape us. And you've said it well, shape us in good and not good ways. So it's amazing how many men I've run across in small groups, at churches, outside of churches, professionally. If you can get to that point where we begin to really shed all our sort of our pretend persona and share who we really are, people say again and again, men say, gosh, I had a dad just like that. So it's out there, right? It's a battleground.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you've had a really great career from going from dropping out of college to then becoming editor and then publisher.
Yeah.
Being on the Pulitzer Board for 3 different terms.
Yeah.
But I know for you, Randell, it's not about the accolades. It's not about the awards, especially as you look back on it. You say, okay, they're nice, and I'm glad to have received those and made my impression upon the world in that way. But the way that you're really now trying to pour your life out for others, specifically for kids that don't have a lot, for families that are underserved and don't have a lot, in the different roles of co-founding the organizations that you found. I'd love for you to just, we've only got a few more minutes here, but you've been the Sioux Falls Hope Coalition that you co-founded, and also the Sioux Falls Neighborhood Soccer. Which a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know that about you and about your story.
And that's good.
And that's okay.
That's a good thing.
Exactly, because you're not necessarily. But so I'd love for you to first tell me, if you can, in a nutshell, kind of about each of those organizations. And then secondly, where did your heart for serving these families and kids in need come from?
Just very quickly about those 2 organizations. The Hope Coalition, founded about 10 years ago, with a guy named Rich McCorris. And Doug Morrison, both strong believers and deeply involved in community affairs. We really very simply recognized the fact that children and families below a certain income can't place their kids in quality preschool. And because they can't, they don't get that exposure. Then they arrive at kindergarten not ready to learn. And that gap between those kids and the others widens as their life goes on. They graduate at a lower rate. They get in trouble at a lower rate. They marry at a lower rate. Their lives are troubled and reflect that gap that occurred back when they were 3 or 4. It's remarkable.
When it wasn't their choice.
And it just happened. And so that, at some level, it's that righteous indignation to Doug and Rich and I that seemed wrong. And we could do something about that. And so with the backing of some other very generous people in this community, we're able to start the Hope Coalition, whose sole purpose, and it's the same today as it was then, was to scholarship children into quality preschools to be able to close that gap so they would arrive at kindergarten ready to learn. That was the mission then, remains today. We have, I'm proud to say, we started out at 40 kids. Today we have almost 300.
That's amazing.
So there's been a lot of lives changed over that time, and I think for the better. I think our community will be a richer, better place for all because of that. And then neighborhood soccer is also a similar kind of thing, Tom, where because of a mentoring relationship I had with a boy up at L.R.B. Anderson near the Smithfield plant elementary, I realized that this very skilled soccer player, had never been on a team. Never had the opportunity to be on a team because his mom was working a couple of different jobs, and both access and finances were just not sufficient to put him on a team so he could practice and do everything that my kids and my grandkids just simply take for granted as a part of the order of life.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's what you do.
And it turns out, of course, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children in Sioux Falls whose lives are not like that reality, and who simply don't have access to that and a million other things, whether it's scouting or music or whatever after-school activities they just don't have access to. And so, at the urging of some friends, I applied for a grant at the Community Foundation, Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation. Unfortunately, I received it.
Now I got to get to work.
And on the back of a napkin, literally wrote out what a neighborhood soccer league would look like in that neighborhood, Riverside. And in the fall of 2021, started a neighborhood soccer league free for any kid, 2nd through 5th grade, who wanted to play with quality coaches. We had 80 kids show up. A miraculous occurrence, to say the least. And today we have 8 leagues across the city. God has just, he has worked a miracle in the lives of those children and in this community, and expanded that little neighborhood soccer notion to 8 leagues across the city. And we now have more than 800 kids who every fall and every spring get to play on a team, get to learn what it means to be a teammate, to learn things like integrity and respect and sportsmanship, and they bring that back into their classrooms and into their schools, and make those richer, better places for all. So and that's sort of echoed through those families, and made those neighborhoods a stronger place to live. So I think Mayor Paul would say this if he were here, a huge supporter of this effort, has made our community better as a result. So anyway, that's a long.
No,
sorry, it's a long.
I'm so
it's such
glad
a
you shared it all.
miraculous. That's the way God works, right?
Well,
He opens up this small door, and then there's this big one that He's really got.
Yeah.
He's got in mind, and one leads to the other, and that's what's happened. And it's been through no real effort. It's been a Spirit-led thing. And what people might say, wait a minute, the Holy Spirit's working in soccer? Absolutely, why not?
Sure,
I think so.
Yeah, well, He's working in all things, right? And here's the deal, like going back to how we first began our conversation here today, was it started with saying yes.
Absolutely.
And, you had this, you saw the need, and you could have said, no, okay, well, I hope someone else does.
I hope somebody does
right?
that. Yeah.
But instead, you got together with a few others individuals, and you said, let's see if we can help meet this need. And so the heart to meet that need was already there. I mean, you had that heart.
That's right. Yeah.
But it was now awakened to go and to put it into action in new ways.
Yeah.
Which is
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And now here you are as in your retirement years.
Yeah, but still doing all things that I choose to do.
Still what you choose.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And still pouring yourself out.
Yeah, but I love it. Yeah.
And so I think I know some of this answer, but I still got to ask. So what, as you've moved into retirement now, several years ago now, but but how did, what was that like for you? To what have you learned about yourself in the retirement years? What's God been teaching you?
Yeah.
And then specifically, I know that you have a goal, Randall, of making your retirement as meaningful as your career.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to kind of end our conversation here, I'd love to know, from just as you go from someone who really has kind of run the gamut in your career, like placing so much emphasis on your career, to then, saying, okay, you know what, now I needs to be filtered, through, Jesus and my faith and everything, to now all of a sudden I'm going to lay my career completely aside, which is difficult for guys to do, because
it's hard
because
it's how we think about ourselves.
It's how we think about ourselves. I'm a publisher and I'm a journalist.
That's
and
right.
Now you're you used to be those things and now you're,
Right.
but so tell me just about how that transition was for you. What did you learn about yourself in the
Yeah.
process and what,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, it was such a healthy process because I did what a lot of guys do, I think, increasingly, and they did sort of the step down career. So when I retired from the Argus, it wasn't walking off the cliff, but because literally weeks after I retired, one of the executives at Avera McKinnon contacted me and said, "Hey, would you consider kind of working part-time to be kind of like this professional coffee goer and lunch person
Yes.
out in the community to kind of tell our story, and no real hours, and we'll pay you this." I mean, yeah, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
I think
Can you drink coffee and eat
I
food?
can drink coffee well, and I can listen and I can talk.
Yeah.
And so for 4 years, I was just this part-time role in which I was helping Avera, advising them, telling their story, helping the community understand that there's this great health go over here, and we really don't hear that much about it. So I was sort of I guess you could say I was a marketing guy, but I would say it's more of a community identity assistant there or advisor. And it was such an honor to tell their story, to brag about the great health care that was going on there because of their genetic disposition to not really brag about what they do. That's kind of in their mission, is that they're there, it's a spirit-led effort. It's not a business deal. And so that was kind of in their nature. And so I helped bring them, I think, a little bit out of their sort of shell on that and help them on the business side, but by telling their story. So my point is, practically, it was a great step down rather than just stepping off the cliff. And we hear that story
Yeah.
from many men.
Right.
They've dreamed about retirement for 30 years
Yeah.
or 40 years, and then they step off the cliff and there's nothing down there. Nothing down there. Like they've done no preparation. They're just lost because they're no longer an engineer, no longer a pipe fitter. They're no longer a teacher. They're none of those things. Well, who are we? Right. And so that really helped me, that step down. It gave me 4 years to think about that. And during that 4 years, God planted on my heart to start both the Hope Coalition and another nonprofit for news reporting, South Dakota News Watch. And so I was busy in those days,
Right.
but I think the working for Avera part-time gave me the opportunity to think about what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I think around that time, like a lot of guys over-prepared, I read about 50 books about what should I do in retirement. So I blame my dad for that. I'm a planner. I'm always thinking about next week or next month. And so that's who I am. That's how God is created. And I kept coming across, especially in books by and for Christians, this concept of finishing strong. And I believe you find it in numerous places in Scripture, especially in the Old Testament, where this idea of the priests, in the temple, the priests were prepared for these jobs their entire lives, and then they became priests for a certain time, and then when they quit, doing their priest duties, their job was not to go off and play on their ATVs in Arizona.
Yeah.
It was rather to turn around and to mentor the next generation, to pour into them, to train them, to encourage them, to support them. And that picture really resonated and still resonates with me, that I felt that call. I think it was such a clear call, coupled with the idea that, said Ephesians 2:10 thing is that we are God's masterpiece.
Yeah.
And that God has these things planned for us long ago. And I faced the reality that God may have never really cared much about whether I was a journalist or not, whether I was on the Pulitzer board. He probably didn't care about all those things. But he may have been planning that at age 61, at 62, I could begin then to make a real difference around me and pour into the life of others and to help a few kids to make this place a better place for all. And I really became convicted of that in my own life. So I every day I think about that reality is that there was that career thing, but then I am living right now the richest, best life I can imagine. And all praise to to God for that.
Yeah.
For bringing, I really think that's possible.
Yeah.
I'm trying. We're all a little bit different there.
Yeah.
But I've come face to face that God's plans are not ours.
Yeah.
And that we need to lean into that and live His whatever kingdom work that He's got. And He may have been all those decades waiting for me to finally wake up and realize I need you to help start this Hope Coalition thing. I need you to start this. I need you to mentor a few kids. I need you to change some lives. I don't care whether you put out newspapers or not. And so it really, that whole process of retiring and then sort of restarting the next stage was exciting, never nerve-wracking, and really thrilling as I saw how really leaned into what God might have in store for me.
But yeah, the scripture says, that we make our plans and He orders our steps.
Precisely right.
You have said yes, and you've taken the steps that He has led you to take. And so let these words, hit your ears and your heart today. But I'm proud of you, and you are doing an extremely good work. Don't come down from the wall. you got a lot of work still yet to be done, and what an important perspective to have, Randell. And I know you and Linda are taking some trips. You're going on, you're still enjoying it, and all that kind of stuff, and so do all that with reckless abandon as well. But I know that you are just fully passionate about what you are able to do at this age, and you're celebrating that you can do it, even health-wise and all those kinds of things, right? And I firmly believe that as long as God gives us breath, He desires that we pour our life out into other people. So thank you for doing that. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Before I have you give the final word from for the listeners today, if someone wants to connect with you, Randell, I mean, you already said that you love to have coffee and lunch. So I know you're not doing that for a bear anymore, but you've maybe got a little time. But if somebody wants to connect with you and just say, man, I'd love to talk with you more about that. I'm wrestling with this. Or So what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, I'm not on social media. I say that with pride.
Yeah.
But I actually do have email.
Yeah. Okay.
So my email, do you have that address, Tom?
Yeah, it's Randell.Beck, right?
Randell.Beck. It's Randell.
Yep.
.Beck at yahoo.com. And I that's one of the richest parts of my life is just having coffee and meeting with people and listening to what is happening in their lives and sharing a little bit of mine. So those are sweet times. So I continue to love that, and I can't imagine stopping.
Yeah. Well, we end our time here on the podcast, as you know, as a pretty regular listener to the pod, as we end it with something we call the final word. And before I allow you to ask you to give your final word on whatever the Lord lays on your heart, 30, 90 seconds of whatever he wants you to share. Thank you for being willing to come and hang out with me here for about an hour at this table.
It's a real honor.
And the conversation, just as our other conversations have been, it's been rich and meaningful and helpful. And, whenever I do these just personally, I get so much out of them. And there's such great encouragement to me. I mean, it says in Proverbs, iron sharpening iron, we sharpen each other, and I feel sharpened after my time here with you today. So thank you so much. But what do you have for us for a final word that you'd like to share?
Thank you. This is completely spontaneous, but it's happened sort of slowly over the past year and a half in my life, and I've come to see the best part of my day is a day that sort of has happened to Linda and I both, is that usually between 4 and 6 p.m., as the day is wrapping up, we find ourselves, and after our various pursuits over the course of the day, back home, and we're sitting together in our two chairs, sort of facing west with the door open, and we share how God has been active in our lives today. But that I'm not giving an adequate build up. We have been intentional about talking about the paths of people we've encountered that surprised us, or a child we are mentoring said this. We look at the past 8 to 10 hours, and we really specifically talk about what was God telling us in that. What was He leaving with us when we witnessed that? And we really specifically, the two of us, being married for almost 48 years, talk about how God and what we did to be involved in His kingdom work. And there's an intentionality to that. And I wish we'd done it for 35, but we've only done it for a couple. And we just love that moment. And we find that it does two things. It strengthens our marriage in unforeseen ways.
Oh, that's good.
We share, we're open, we talk about stuff. And the second thing is that we have this eyes open awareness of the Spirit's leading and activity in ways I feel like sometimes my whole life I've been blind to those things. But it says seek and you shall find.
Yeah.
And so we try to seek, we try to open our eyes and see what God was telling us in an encounter, in a discussion with someone. So really being attentive to His foot tracks, because I believe that positions us to be better aware of it tomorrow. So that's been a reset for us.
Man,
well, no, I mean that's
not, a gem.
That's not that's theologically heavy, but it's practical.
No, are you kidding me?
Has been a gift for us,
brother. That is so good. And I had a question on here that I wasn't able to get to because of time, and it was just like, what's one piece of it? After being married for almost 50 years, what's one piece of marriage advice? And and what you just gave on your final word was just a gem for building relationship and strength for your marriage. But then what I loved about it is it's a reminder to be open throughout the day, but then it's also, it puts emphasis on tomorrow already and say, man, I don't want to miss what God's doing, right?
Completely
and it's not about like, okay, what have you done for me lately, or what are you going to do
That's
tomorrow?
Right. To
go back to a previous conversation, but it's, I don't want to miss how God is moving and how God may want to use me today. So man, that is so good. That is a great final word. You are leaving this podcast with me energized for that, and also sharpened and encouraged to make that more of a focus of Laura and I usually talk about our days.
Yeah.
But I love that question of how did you see God moving today? How was God using you? So that is so solid. Randell, thank you, my brother. I love you. I'm so grateful for this time to be at the table.
Yeah.
And man, you dropped some wisdom and knowledge today, and I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that's going to do it for another episode of the RESGEN Giving Life podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Randell. And if you found it helpful, man, please, I encourage you to share the episode with others in your relational world. That last word for me was just, man, that was so good for me personally. And I know that that's going to serve as a great reminder for all of us as we head out here from this pod. If you'd like to connect more with Randell, be sure to send him that email, randell.beck, that's RANDELL, .beck@yahoo.com, like he mentioned. Remember, head to resgen.org so you can grab your summit tickets as well as your date night tickets. And don't miss out on your opportunities to join us for those two big events right here at the front end of 2026. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of the RESGEN Giving Life podcast. Until then, continue being men whose life in Christ gives life to others. We'll see you soon.